Welcome in, everybody, to this dark mystery. I will be your host this week, Rob Coakley, joined by my unknowing sidekicks of this episode, Dave Wilkins
Hello.
and Jesse Wilkins.
Hey there.
And this is going to be very similar to our Mel's Hole episode, where I take Dave and Jesse on a journey through a dark mystery where they have no knowledge beforehand. And maybe ourselves and you, the listeners, can solve this dark mystery together. Without further ado, gentlemen, do you just want to jump right into this? Do you have any guesses of what we could be talking about?
I mean, I got nothing to base it on.
You give us no clues at all.
Hey, you get no clues. If you
call this left in the dark mysteries.
Yes, exactly. All right. Let's start by getting in our time machines, shall we? And we're going to travel back to August 31st, 1944. And we're going to check in on a small town in Illinois by the name of Mattoon. A man by the name of Urban Rafe is awakened in the early morning hours by the smell of a strange odor. He stumbles out of bed, feeling weak, and begins to vomit uncontrollably.
I feel like the smell of a strange odor is a little redundant.
Thank you.
It would just be a strange odor, right?
Sure.
By the sighting of a strange sighting.
Smelled the smell of a smelly smell.
Thinking that he's been poisoned by the stove possibly being left on, he yells for his wife to go make sure that it's off. As she goes to get out of bed, she realizes that she's paralyzed and unable to reach the kitchen.
Is this carbon monoxide poisoning?
We're going to find out what it is.
Sounds like carbon monoxide poisoning.
It turns out the stove wasn't to blame, and they were unsure of what caused the illness. So let's fast forward to the evening of August 31st. So that was the early morning hours, somewhere, 2, 3 a.m. We're going to go to the evening. And a similar incident was reported by a young mother who lived close to...
Nope. We're going to back up. The guy wakes up puking, and the wife crawls to the kitchen, but can't because she's paralyzed. And now she's going to jump forward several hours. Everyone just leave this unresolved.
So they ended up getting better. They reported it and nothing was found.
Okay.
Basically. So they did make full recoveries. But when they reported it to medical and police, nothing was discovered. There was a mystery at that point. So now we'll fast forward to the evening of August 31st, and a similar incident was reported by a young mother who lived close to the Rafes. She was awakened by the sound of her daughter violently coughing, but as she went to check on her, the mother herself was paralyzed and unable to get out of bed. Once symptoms lessened, both reported these experiences. So we have two similar situations. This is 1944. They live relatively close to each other. This is within the same day. One's early morning, one's late at night. And both have smelled something. People in the house have gotten sick. And two of the people have also been paralyzed at this point for a short duration.
Yeah.
Temporarily paralyzed. Let's go a little ahead. Let's go 24 hours later on the night of September 1st. Eileen Kearney is home with her daughter at their residence on Marshall Ave. Her husband, Bert, a local taxi driver, was working that night.
Wait, and what are their names again?
Aileen. I might have said Eileen, but it's Aileen, A-L-I-N-E.
Mm-hmm.
And her husband is Bert.
Okay. What were the last names?
Kearney.
All right.
Bert Kearney?
Bert and Kearney.
You can't name your kid Bert if your last name's Kearney.
It's 1944. You can. Sesame Street hasn't happened yet. Are you looking up when Sesame Street started?
Sesame Street was the 80s.
1969.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I mean, it carried over into the 80s.
I mean, it's still a thing.
What year was Bert and Ernie born?
Not
1944.
Oh. He means the characters. Not like that would matter. Like
they were born the same year. They weren't infants on the show, though.
You understand they didn't exist before
these puppet bursts of
grown men living together.
Her husband, Bert, a local taxi driver, was working that night, and Aileen was feeling uncomfortable in the home after withdrawing a large sum of money from the bank earlier in the day.
I just got to say this real quick. If you're Bert, you cannot drive a taxi if you're the exact same color as the taxi.
Where is he?
Maybe that's the mystery. There's just a lone
We're starting to
taxi.
get to the bottom of this here.
So being scared to stay home alone with all this money in the house, she called her sister and asked her to come stay with her, and her sister agreed. After getting ready for bed that night, Aileen began to smell a strong, sweet odor around 11 p.m. Initially thinking it was just flowers, she dismissed it. But as the smell grew stronger, she noticed that she was soon unable to move her legs. Terrified, she screamed out for her sister, who rushed to help her, who then also smelled the odor. Noticing it was coming from the open bedroom window, she shut it and contacted local authorities.
So not carbon monoxide.
Not carbon monoxide.
You wouldn't smell it.
Bert was also called and came home around 12:30 a.m. And upon his arrival, noticed a tall man dressed in dark clothing and a tight-fitted cap hiding close to a window on the outside of the house. Bert would give chase, but the prowler got away. Police believe this was an attempted robbery and that the person may have seen Aileen withdraw the money earlier in the day. On September 2nd, newspapers would incorrectly report this as the first attack and name the culprit the anesthetic prowler. But quickly, they would change the name from the anesthetic prowler to the Mad Gasser of Mattoon.
Nice job, Rob.
Listeners, you missed out on the Mad Gasser of Mattoon animation that Rob put together for hours.
Yes, for that 4 seconds, just so I could do my 1940s newscaster voice. So this dark mystery, that is our little opening. This is about the Mad Gasser of Mattoon.
You can't just say it. You got to.
The Mad Gasser of Mattoon. Yeah, you really got to get into it there. So we are going to go on a journey and see if we can discover if they figured out who the Mad Gasser of Mattoon was, how many more people he attacked. We're gonna try to get to the bottom of this dark mystery.
So was the Mad Gasser trying to rob her? I mean, first of all, big first world problems. Oh my goodness, I have to go to bed with all this money in my house.
Yes. Well, that's what they thought initially. The police thought that, but it didn't appear so with the first two attacks happening the night before. Again, the newspapers labeled this particular one as the first attack incorrectly when there was the two attacks the day before. The newspapers picked up on the story really quick, and one of the first newspaper articles that came out, they would have the following quote: "He moves through the night as nimbly and secretly as a cat, squirting a Swedish gas through bedroom windows."
Sweetish or Swedish?
Swedish, like a sweet smelling
Okay.
gas. Not Swedish, like meatballs.
The Mad Gasser of Mattoon was Swedish.
He was just spraying
just chucking Swedish meatballs through people's bedroom windows.
Yes. The
Is
Mad
this not
Meatball
pleasant?
Platoon. Yes.
You just wanted to share our meatballs.
I just wanted to assemble your furniture.
Yes. Thank God we are not a big podcast in Sweden. Following this, several other attacks would be reported, but no evidence would be collected until the night of September 5th. Carl and Beulah Cordes, Cordes,
Cordes, yeah, Cordes,
returned to their home on North 21st Street around 10 p.m. After a few moments of being home, they spotted a piece of white cloth slightly larger than a handkerchief on their porch next to the screen door. Beulah, not thinking much of it, picked up the cloth and began to smell it. And I'm going to call timeout right here. Because I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. I don't know what this cloth was like. If it's not my cloth.
Yeah, no, you don't know where that thing came from. Could have blown over from Sesame Street.
Could have.
After her first inhale, she became violently ill, describing the effect as being similar to electric shock. Her mouth and throat started to burn, and she vomited nonstop. She
described it. She's still vomiting to this day.
To this day, just on North 21st Street. Just like, oh, that's Beulah. She's 130 years old and she hasn't stopped puking since 1944. She described her body as being weak and her legs as partially paralyzed. The family believed the cloth was left there to knock out the family dog, who was asleep on the porch, in order to rob the house. Upon arrival, the police found a few peculiar items on the sidewalk adjacent to the porch. A skeleton key that was described as well used, and a large, almost empty tube of lipstick. The cloth was analyzed, but they found no chemicals that could explain the reaction that it gave to Beulah. That's our next most prominent attack. Now, these attacks continue to happen night after night. People are reporting seeing somebody. There was the local principal who had 3 separate reports as well. It became like a town-wide epidemic. And after this, the town began to panic. And the FBI was called in, and some citizens began to form mobs patrolling, looking for the Mad Gasser themselves. The police warned against this, and as they felt this could be a problem for public safety, they're patrolling with shotguns and bats and everything. And
You see this all the time with things like that. The public starts to panic. They think the police aren't doing good enough, so they are like, we'll take it into our own hands. And to be fair, usually it doesn't end well.
No. During the next week, the reports of the Gasser attacks began to escalate. People were finding tears in their window screens, footprints by their windows, and on a few occasions, a person near the window that would dash away when spotted. The police, overwhelmed with a lot of fake calls for it as well, noted that the person running away was probably just a nosy neighbor, essentially. Just a nosy neighbor.
This is why they don't trust you. This is why they're like, we'll handle this, officers.
Yeah.
We keep telling you that we're spotting the guy, and you keep saying dumb shit like this.
Yeah.
This is beyond nosy neighbor. Like, I'm curious about my neighbors. I've never seen them outside. They could be.
You never run up and.
They might have been dead, but I don't go stand in their window. I do it from a distance with binoculars.
Yeah. with a notepad, just documenting the time of day and what they do at all hours, so that you can form a pattern and a profile on your neighbors. That's how you do it. On September 12th, the police decided to reduce the police search for the Gasser, believing that the majority, if not all, the reports of the Mad Gasser of Mattoon were bogus.
That's not how you settle the public down after they're forming vigilante mobs.
Yeah.
Just kidding. We made it up.
Yeah.
Well, I do believe so. We do see this as well when something like this happens. So, for instance, when police are looking for a tip for a murderer, right? They get hundreds of tips from random people that are either trying to pin it on somebody they don't like, or paranoid people that everyone they see is the killer, and they just get a ton of phone calls. So I don't.
And then you also get a bunch of people taking credit for it for some reason.
Sure.
Strange thing that happens all the time.
Yeah.
And especially if there's a reward offered, you get all these crazy.
Yeah, just trying to get the money.
Yep.
So I don't doubt that they were getting false calls about this, right? We're going to get a little more into that in a second about the town as a whole. But after they decided to like stop the patrolling for this guy, Police Chief C.E. Cole would even release a statement saying, quote, "The entire incident was likely the result of explainable occurrences exasperated by public fears and a sign of the anxiety felt by women while local men were on war service."
Yeah. It's just women in their crazy womanly imaginings.
Just crazy women. Just so upset that their husbands are at war. Yet most of these reports that we get involve a husband and wife being home and both being
in that situation is just the nosy neighbors. Every other situation is just the crazy women.
Yeah. Always exacerbating the situation.
Yeah. That was on September 12th. September 13th, there would be one final reported Mad Gasser attack. Bertha Birch saw somebody lurking around her home that evening.
Jesus Christ, can we go back? What are these names this episode?
But
your last name is Birch. You can't name your daughter Bertha. Bertha Birch.
Bertha Birch.
Bertha Birch and her neighbors Bert and Ernie.
It's insane.
Bert Kearney. Bert and Ernie.
Yeah. Curdy and Bertha Birch.
I gave birth to Bertha Birch. You can't say that as a mother. This is terrible.
The name of the town is Mattoon. It's like, what else are we going to do here? We have to have crazy names in that town name.
It is a silly name for a town.
Yeah.
I gave birth to Bertha Birch near the birch tree.
So Bertha Birch saw somebody.
Bertha Birch. What are we doing? Son of a birch.
So Bertha Birch saw somebody lurking around her home on that evening.
You can't lurk near Bertha Birch. It's a Bertha Birch lurker. She should have opened up a burger place. Bertha Birch's Burgers. That's a lot of fun to say. We can move on.
She managed to scare the person off. And when the police arrived, she would describe the person as a woman.
Was the person perched on Bertha Birch's perch?
Wow, just really ruined the reveal there.
Sorry.
She would describe the person as a woman who was dressed like a man. Upon searching the area, the police would find heels that a woman would have worn near Bertha's windows. Then, as quickly as they began, 2 short weeks later, the Gasser attacks would end. So, what happened? We have.
So it's funny when the police just blamed the women. It just turned out to be a woman.
Could be.
Turns out they were kind of right. I don't know.
Well, we don't know yet. We have a ton of theories. Do we want to just get the absolutely insane, crazy theories out of the way that are definitely not what happened here?
Mm-hmm.
Well, the first one is actually ghosts.
Yep. Which
I don't believe at all is anything ghost related in this.
Yeah, I also don't believe in ghosts whatsoever.
This is not good for the show.
Yeah. Following one is aliens.
Okay.
So, no. I'm just going to say no. Oh, do you believe it's the alien theory? Are you gonna
maybe?
Okay.
Aliens do stuff like that. They abduct people and do experiments. They could be gassing too.
Yeah, leaving skeleton keys and high heel prints outside windows.
Yeah. Perched on Bertha Birch's porch.
The final crazy theory, at least I think it's crazy. People believe that America did it to this town of Mattoon. You got to remember, we are still in wartime, and people believe that they gassed Mattoon to see the effects of a new gas that they were developing and to see how it worked on people.
Maybe.
Perhaps.
Yeah. I don't buy it though. I feel like I don't feel like Mattoon is the place they would do it, but maybe that's exactly what they want us to think. Let's get into some of the more widely accepted ones.
I mean, have you heard about some of the crazy things that the CIA has proposed in the past? Like,
yes, yeah. I mean,
they launched a nuke at the ozone layer just to see what would happen. This is a thing that has been done. They do stuff. They do stuff that you say, well, why? Why did you do that?
Do you think this is the way they would do it, though? Just somebody lurking around the town? Like, I feel like they would do it a different way. I feel like they would, like, crop dust the town if that's what they wanted to do, right?
Maybe.
Are you familiar with Operation Northwoods? Not to get completely off track.
No, but we are going to probably get so off track, so just go for it.
I'm going to try. So just to lay some groundwork for how absolutely batshit the CIA is, and if it wasn't for JFK, that they might have actually gone through with this actual operation. You can look this up. It's online. It's all public record. Operation Northwoods was proposed. It was proposed that they would create public support for war against Cuba by blaming the government for terrorist attacks that would be perpetrated by the United States on United States citizens. So government committing terrorist acts on U.S. citizens, blaming Cuba to get the U.S. public to support war against Cuba. And JFK was like, no, fucking doing that. So they killed him.
All right. So all of our JFK comments can come to this video now as well. So I'm excited for that.
Yeah, so our Operation Hardtack 1, I believe, was the one I was talking about, where they're just like, let's just nuke the ozone layer and see what's up.
I mean, nuke the ozone layer, sure, but please don't nuke us just to blame it on Cuba.
So one of the widely accepted theories from some people at the time, the police were blaming was the Atlas Imperial Manufacturing Plant, which was relatively close by to the town. And they produced ammunition for war there at the time. And the police were like, yeah, the wind was blowing and it took some fumes from there. And that's what it was. And the plant came back and was like, don't fucking put this on us. We're not, that's not us.
Leave
None of
us
our
out of this.
employees are experiencing these symptoms. We didn't do shit.
Yeah.
We didn't do anything. Leave us alone. So
Yeah. Here's a libel suit, piece of shit.
yeah. Another one was an escaped German prisoner from a prison that was relatively in the area. They thought that maybe he was doing it, which I just like, I don't think that he escapes prison to start randomly gassing people in Mattoon. I think he's trying to get home.
They've been known to do such a thing.
Yeah, but he just escaped prison, bro. He's not doing, I wouldn't want to do acts that get me caught again.
Yeah, I don't know. That's
And,
rough.
and there was no evidence that he was ever there either, is the other thing.
It does seem like just kind of like, well, it must have been a German. You know, I don't know.
The most widely believed theory by historians and some of the people that lived in the day is mass hysteria. They believe that this is a case of mass hysteria, which we've seen in the past. I have more trouble with mass hysteria for this one because of a few things. The first one being the first two attacks weren't reported. And it's not like now. There's no Facebook. There's no texting. News isn't getting around quite as quick, right? When these two families got attacked on the first day. The third attack is the one that hits the newspapers. And again, that was documented wrongly by the newspapers as the first attack.
You logically can't say the first case was mass hysteria.
Right.
So even if the rest was, what was the first one?
Right. And these people didn't talk to each other. So we have 3 separate cases. We could say 2 if you want to say the third one heard about it somehow. But the first 2 didn't talk to each other. It seems as though the third one didn't talk to either of the other 2. And they're all reporting the same symptoms and everything. So I don't think it's mass hysteria completely. I think if you look, there's like over 30 reports in the span of 2 weeks. Do think there might have been some mass hysteria at play after it hit the newspapers and was getting drummed up a little bit. I think people might have been reporting actual flu-like symptoms as the Mad Gasser and stuff like that. You know, where they're getting sick and rather than being rational, they're just like, oh, I got gassed overnight or something like that. So I think that is definitely in play here, but I don't think every single attack, quote unquote, is part of the mass hysteria.
Don't we just go with Occam's razor? Like, I feel like all of these rationalizations are just unnecessarily multiplying entities when you could just say it was probably just somebody running around poisoning people or gassing people. I think that is actually just the one that makes the most sense.
That brings us to the only suspect that was ever investigated in this case. And it takes a little bit of digging to actually find out that information, believe it or not. I had to look around for a little while, but his name was Farley Llewellyn. Llewellyn.
Yeah, I think that's how you Llewellyn.
Llewellyn. I don't
2
know.
L's?
Yeah, 2 L's. Double Leue double Lyn.
Yuyin.
Yeah, I don't
Soft
think
L's, a lot of soft L's.
Yeah.
He was a student of chemistry,
Okay.
but he was also ostracized by the town. He didn't have friends in high school. A lot of people believe that this was based on his sexuality at the time. They thought that he might have been gay, and people never talked to him because 1944 is a different time, right? If you're believing that about people. And he seemed like a compelling suspect because he had the means and the motives. And most of these alleged attacks occurred near his home. So he was known
What's the motive though?
Well, he was ostracized by the town. People didn't talk to him. People were dicks to him. He seemed to be not a great person either. Like he was an asshole to everybody as well. He had a lab where it was in a trailer, and right before the attack started,
Was he making meth?
Well, they're not sure what he was making. I mean, I know it's like a Breaking Bad thing, but the lab actually exploded at one point.
He was making meth.
Yeah.
Probably, but they think that he might have been working on a gas for people. But even after his place was under constant surveillance, the reports of the attacks had continued. However, I did read two separate incidents of this, so this is also hearsay and grain of salt type stuff. I read that he had two sisters that locked him in the basement for a while, and after they locked him in the basement is when the attack stopped. And then he went into whatever, they got him help or something. So there is theories, and there's a lot of like rumors that float around him being the actual attacker. And maybe he was into cross-dressing. Maybe that's why they saw a tall, skinny woman that left lipstick out, wore high heels. Maybe that was something he wore while he did it. But this is all speculation. None of this was ever proven fact, and most people don't believe that he was the actual Gasser.
There's a lot of things that are pointing to him being guilty here, though.
Right.
So I could definitely see that. I mean, he's angry at the town. He's got the lab.
It's the simplest explanation.
Right.
Yes.
I mean, we got nothing else. They didn't really name anybody else, no other suspects. So guilty.
Yeah. Guilty. The only other thing that people have brought up with this case is about 10 years earlier in 1933, there were gas attacks in Boudetort County, Virginia, that were somewhat similar. It's a bit of a stretch to say that they're the same, but those ones in Virginia, a group of people were doing the gassing.
Doing the gassing. I'm
Really
back
made that
to,
sound so casual.
Yeah.
I'm back to thinking it was the CIA now.
But these people were so bumbling that they were often chased away before they could actually cause any harm. And generally it was 2 to 4 people that were seen running away. Other differences is that these people were trying to barricade the homes first with trees and rocks. But an interesting note is that among the people that were seen in this group of 2 to 4 people were women as well. So it was women seen fleeing from the scenes. But this is an 11 years difference. This is Virginia. I mean, you're really stretching to put these two together. If you put these two together, the only theory that sounds like maybe one of the women from that had moved to Mattoon and she was, doing it again. But we're really stretching for that.
That's rude. These people strike me as idiots. Like, what are you doing with the trees and the rocks?
Yeah.
Like there's no way that is going to be a timely manner of barricade. Just lock it. It's a door. Lock it.
Yeah. Yeah. Do something else.
Don't get trees.
Yeah.
Don't get the trees.
Yeah.
Who's going to bring the tree? Are they chopping down? So they got to chop down trees and drag the trees over.
Yeah. Not great. This is why they were never able to successfully gas anybody, because they were
lumberjacking before this attack.
They're like, what we're going to do is we're going to build a house around the house and then gas them.
Basically. Yeah. I'd like to think they had a fun slogan like, before we attack, we must lumberjack. But is lumberjack a verb? I don't know.
It can be.
For the sake
I like the idea of building a house around the house to gaslight them.
Yes.
Wait, didn't I just leave my house? Why am I still in the house?
Yes.
Just do this again.
So sick of locking these doors behind me. That's pretty much it, though. Those are the theories. It's never been fully resolved. It remains a dark mystery. We'll probably never know actually what happened in the town of Mattoon. 2 weeks. This was only over the course of 2 weeks before it died out completely. But there's plenty more of attacks. Like I said, I didn't label all of them. These are some of the more prominent ones with evidence that actually came to light. But if you look, you can look on like the Wikipedia page. There's a whole timeline there of when every attack was reported and by who. So there was about 30 attacks that were reported throughout that 2 weeks or something like that. So
that's a lot.
Yeah. Absolute crazy case. I don't know what I believe in it. I do believe it was somebody doing a few of these. I think the majority were probably false, but I do think some of the ones that we read and maybe 1 or 2 more were actually a gasser doing this to people.
Yeah, I'm with you 100% on that.
Jesse, do you have any theories? Do you think
Yeah, I
Sesame
think
Street can help us here?
no, I think it was a legitimate case. Probably the meth cook guy that was doing it, because we don't really have any other legitimate suspects here. But I do think after the first few cases happened and the mob was formed, I think you had a little bit of mass hysteria going on where everybody thinks that they're also getting gassed. Maybe you had some creepy neighbors that were lurking outside of people's windows. But if you ask me, that seems more like the behavior of the Mad Gasser. I'm sorry, it's more of the behavior.
The Mad Gasser of Mattoon.
More of his behavior than it would be of just a creepy neighbor being creepy. So
Exactly. So that's going to do it for this dark mystery. What do you guys think? Do you think it was mass hysteria? Was it aliens? Was there an actual gasser? Was it Farley? Wow, however the hell you say his name. Was it Bert and Ernie from Sesame Street? Was it the cab driver? Was it a woman, a tall, thin woman who left her skeleton? We didn't even talk about the skeleton key. Just a random skeleton key being left on the sidewalk. Seems a little bit weird. Let us know in the comments what you think. Until our next
Was it JFK?
Was it JFK?
was it aliens? Was it the ghost of aliens?
We just really want to know who the Mad Gasser of Mattoon was, and we just don't know. Really. So let us know in the comments if you think you know. I've been Rob. That's Dave and Jesse. We'll catch you next time. Peace.